Captain Ethan Voss stood at the edge of the observation deck aboard the human exploration ship Horizon's Light, staring at the enormous planet below. Crithar Prime glowed like a jewel in the dark void, its oceans reflecting streaks of violet and green from the planet's two suns. For years, humanity had heard rumors of the Zitherians, a proud warrior race rumored to be stronger and fiercer than any human soldier. Now, for the first time, a human diplomat was about to meet them face to face. Ethan adjusted his uniform and took a deep breath. Unlike most humans chosen for this mission, he wasn't a fighter. He wasn't tall, muscular, or intimidating. What he had, he knew, was patience, calm reasoning, and a genuine respect for life. In a galaxy where strength often ruled, he had learned early that gentleness could be a different kind of power. The landing pod shook slightly as it entered Crithar Prime's atmosphere. Ethan gripped the rail, his heart racing with anticipation. Beside him, Lieutenant Mara Chen, a human military advisor, glanced at him with concern. "Captain," she said, "I still think this is dangerous. Zitherians don't trust humans, and the woman we are about to meet, Lyra, is a renowned warrior. She's not the type to forgive mistakes." Ethan smiled faintly. "I know. But Mara, aggression won't solve anything. If we approach her with respect, she may surprise us instead of attacking." The pod touched down gently on a platform carved into a cliff overlooking a vast valley. The air was thick but breathable. Ethan stepped out first, his boots crunching against the metallic surface. The valley stretched endlessly, dotted with structures of metal and stone that reflected both elegance and strength. And then he saw her. Lyra. She was taller than any human he had ever met, her body lean but built for combat. Her eyes were golden, sharp, and alert, scanning every movement around her. Her skin had a subtle blue tint, and intricate markings ran across her arms and neck, symbols of her clan and achievements. She carried a long, curved weapon on her back, a mix of ceremonial and practical design, showing that she was both warrior and leader. Ethan took a careful step forward, bowing slightly, not in fear, but in respect. "Captain Ethan Voss," he said clearly, his voice calm. "I am honored to meet you." Lyra's eyes narrowed. She tilted her head, studying him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. She expected humans to be either arrogant or frightened. This man was neither. "Ethan Voss," she repeated, her voice low but firm, "you are human. You have come to Crithar Prime, alone?" "I come as a diplomat," Ethan replied, "to learn, to understand, and to find peace between our peoples." Lyra laughed, a sound like clashing metal. "Peace?" she said. "Humans talk of peace, but you are weak. A true warrior does not speak of peace." Ethan shook his head gently. "Strength is not always in fighting. Sometimes it is in knowing when to show mercy and when to listen. That too is courage." For a long moment, Lyra said nothing. Then, with a flick of her wrist, she gestured toward the platform ahead. "Walk with me. If you survive the first hour, we shall see if your words hold truth." Ethan followed. He felt the weight of the weapon on her back, the tension in her steps, the power she carried without even trying. But instead of feeling fear, he felt a strange sense of calm. She is testing me, he realized, and he would pass, not with strength, but with patience. As they walked through the valley, Ethan noticed Zitherian architecture, unlike anything humans had built. Towers rose like jagged teeth from the ground, covered in shimmering panels that seemed alive. People moved with precision, their muscles controlled and practiced. Every Zitherian he saw was alert, ready for combat or command at any moment. Lyra spoke little at first, letting Ethan observe her people. Then she asked, "Why do humans come to Crithar Prime? Our clans have survived for centuries without you. What is your purpose?" Ethan chose his words carefully. We have heard of your strength and courage. Humanity wishes to learn from it. We also wish to share knowledge, science, culture, ideas. Perhaps we can grow stronger together, without war." Lyra's eyes narrowed again, but she did not interrupt. She had heard such words before from weaker humans. She expected lies, manipulation, or fear. But this human spoke calmly, with honesty she could feel in his tone. They reached a large plaza at the heart of the Xtherian settlement. Dozens of Xtherians stopped to watch, their eyes like knives, studying Ethan with suspicion. He remained composed, smiling faintly, never showing fear. "Stand here," Lyra commanded, pointing to a marked area on the plaza. "We have a tradition. Every visitor must face a test." Ethan nodded. "I am ready." From the crowd, a Xtherian male stepped forward. He was taller than Lyra, with muscles coiled like steel cables. He brandished a spear and swung it in a challenging arc. Lyra whispered something, and the male halted, bowing slightly. "He will test you," Lyra said. "If you fail, we show no mercy." Ethan's stomach tightened, but he kept his composure. The test was not only physical, but also mental. He would have to show courage without aggression, strength without harming others. The male attacked again. Ethan sidestepped carefully, using the environment, raised platforms and pillars, to his advantage. He avoided striking back. Each movement was measured, precise, controlled. Lyra watched closely, her expression unreadable. Minutes passed. Sweat beaded on Ethan's forehead, but he did not panic. He did not fight with rage. He simply endured, protecting himself while showing no disrespect. Finally, the male stopped. Lyra approached, her golden eyes piercing. "You are different," she said slowly. "You do not fight like a human. You do not seek to dominate." Ethan bowed slightly. "I fight only when necessary, and even then, I fight to protect, not to conquer." For the first time, Lyra smiled faintly. It was not a warm smile, but a recognition. Few humans survive this test. Fewer still show restraint. Perhaps you are worth knowing. The crowd murmured. Many Xtherians were shocked. No human had ever faced their test with patience and dignity. Ethan had passed, not through violence, but through understanding. Lyra turned away from the crowd and gestured for Ethan to follow her. "Come, I will show you our council chamber. If you speak wisely there, perhaps you may leave Crithar Prime alive, and with knowledge of our people." As they walked, Ethan felt a surge of relief, but also excitement. He had survived the first encounter. He had impressed a warrior like Lyra not by strength, but by gentleness, respect, and composure. For Lyra, the encounter left a lasting impression. She had faced thousands of warriors, but never one who treated her not as a foe, but as an equal. She did not yet trust him fully, but curiosity had taken root. Who was this human who could face fear and aggression without losing himself? Ethan knew the journey had only just begun. The true challenge would be understanding Xtherian culture, proving his intentions, and forging a bond strong enough to unite two very different worlds. The sun began to set over Crithar Prime, casting long shadows across the plaza. Lyra stood silently, watching the horizon. Ethan followed her gaze, sensing that this was not just the end of the day. It was the beginning of something extraordinary. For the first time in human history, a diplomat had faced a warrior alien not with swords or blasters, but with calm words, measured actions, and genuine respect. And for the first time, a Xtherian warrior had felt something unexpected. The possibility that a human could be more than fragile flesh. They could be strong in ways she had never imagined. As night fell, the stars reflected off Crithar Prime's oceans, and Ethan thought quietly to himself, strength is not only in the body. Sometimes the greatest power lies in the heart. And somewhere behind him, Lyra considered a new question. Could a gentle human teach a warrior something she had never known? The answer, neither of them realized yet, would surprise both of them and change the future of two worlds. The morning sun rose slowly over Crethar Prime, spilling violet and gold light across the jagged towers of the Zetherian city. Captain Ethan Voss awoke in the guest quarters of the council complex, still feeling the excitement and tension of the previous day. He had survived the first test with Lyra, not through force, but through patience and respect. Yet he knew that the real challenge was only beginning. Lyra arrived shortly after dawn. She moved with silent precision, her golden eyes scanning the room as if searching for weaknesses, though she knew Ethan had none to exploit in a traditional sense. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice calm but sharp, like steel sliding across stone. Ethan stood and nodded. "I am. But I hope your challenge will not be one of unnecessary violence." Lyra's lips twitched in what almost seemed like amusement. "Do not mistake my traditions, human. This challenge will test your courage, intelligence, and your ability to remain calm under pressure. Violence may be present, but it is not always the answer." Ethan inclined his head. "Then I am ready." They left the quarters and walked into the open courtyard of the Zetherian training grounds. It was massive, larger than any human stadium he had ever seen, lined with tall metal pillars and platforms for training warriors. Around them, Zetherians practiced combat with incredible precision, striking and dodging as if their bodies were extensions of their weapons. Lyra gestured toward a raised platform. "Here is where you will face your challenge. A duel, not to kill, but to test your instincts. You will face me first, then a trained warrior of our clan. Your task is to survive, to remain calm, and to demonstrate understanding of your opponent." Ethan's heart beat faster. A duel with Lyra was no small matter. Even a minor misstep could provoke anger, though he reminded himself that he had a different kind of strength. Lyra stepped onto the platform first. Her long weapon glimmered in the sunlight, reflecting her readiness for combat. Ethan stepped up carefully, his own hands empty, his stance relaxed but alert. He did not brandish a weapon because he trusted his mind and patience more than his fists. The first strike came suddenly. Lyra moved with blinding speed, swinging her weapon in a wide arc. Ethan ducked and rolled, feeling the air rush over him as the blade passed mere inches from his shoulder. He kept his movements controlled, careful not to provoke unnecessary force. "You move well for a human," Lyra remarked mid-strike. "But can you think as fast as you move?" Ethan did not answer with words. Instead, he observed. Every motion Lyra made was precise and deliberate. He noticed her patterns, the slight shift in her stance before each strike, the way her weight moved. He began predicting her moves not with aggression, but with careful timing, avoiding blows without striking back. Minutes passed. The duel continued, each strike faster and sharper than the last. Sweat dripped down Ethan's face, but he did not panic. He did not shout. He did not attack. He simply stayed present, responding with awareness and intelligence rather than force. Lyra paused, breathing lightly. "You are unusual," she said. "No human has ever faced me with such composure. Most would cower, scream, or attack blindly. You think." Ethan gave a small smile. "Thinking is part of strength. A mind that can remain calm is just as powerful as a blade." Lyra studied him, her golden eyes narrowing. She swung her weapon again, but this time with less force, testing his reactions rather than attempting to strike him. Ethan dodged, rolling and stepping with the rhythm of her attacks. Then came the final test. Lyra's movements accelerated until she seemed almost like a blur, a living storm of strength and precision. Ethan felt the heat of her determination, the power behind each strike. Yet he remembered her words. Violence was not always the answer. Instead of meeting force with force, Ethan shifted his strategy. He moved with patience, observing gaps in her rhythm and adjusting his position to avoid danger. He stayed calm, steady, and alert, never showing fear. Finally, Lyra stopped mid-strike, lowering her weapon. She looked at him intently. "You have survived, not by strength alone, but by awareness, patience, and understanding. Few warriors, even among my own people, can do this. You are worthy of attention." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Lyra. I do not seek to defeat you. I seek to learn, to understand, and to find peace between our peoples." For a long moment, Lyra said nothing. Then she gave a curt nod. "You are not weak. You are different. And perhaps that difference is exactly what is needed." The next challenge came quickly. Lyra led Ethan to a training yard where another Zitharian warrior awaited, a male named Kale, known for his speed and combat skill. Kale's eyes gleamed with challenge. Unlike Lyra, he was blunt and aggressive, testing all newcomers with force. "You will face him," Lyra said. "Do not strike to harm. Survive and learn from his moves. That is the test." Ethan's stomach tightened slightly. Kale moved with terrifying speed, launching attacks that would have injured an unprepared human. But Ethan did not panic. He remembered the lessons from Lyra. Stay calm. Observe. Understand. He dodged, blocked, and stepped aside, using Kale's momentum against him without striking back. Slowly, Kale's attacks began to lose precision as he realized that Ethan was not reacting with fear or anger. Ethan's calm presence frustrated him in a way no human had before. Lyra watched from the sidelines, impressed. She had trained Kale to be a perfect tester of strength, yet he could not shake Ethan's composure. After a long series of attacks, Kale stopped and dropped his weapon. "I cannot unbalance him," he admitted. "He does not fear. He does not resist. He moves as if he understands everything before it happens." Ethan nodded politely. "I only seek to understand, not to conquer. Strength is measured in many ways, not just by how hard one can strike." Lyra stepped forward, placing a hand on Kale's shoulder. "You see? This is why he is different. He may be human, but he carries a strength we have rarely seen." For the first time, Ethan noticed a subtle shift in Lyra's demeanor. Her respect was growing. She had begun to understand that strength could exist in gentleness and intelligence. After the training session, Lyra took Ethan to a quiet overlook, where the winds of Crithar Prime swept across the cliffs, carrying the scent of alien flora. "You handled yourself well," she said softly, almost hesitantly. "Most humans would have panicked or attacked blindly. You did not. You surprised me." Ethan smiled gently. "I believe every creature, every warrior has a reason for their actions. Understanding that reason is more important than defeating them." Lyra studied him for a long moment. Her golden eyes seemed to pierce through him, searching for hidden motives. But she found none. Instead, she felt something she had never expected, a sense of calm and trust. "You are unusual human," she said finally. "Perhaps you will teach us something, or perhaps you will survive long enough to show the Council that not all humans are weak." Ethan chuckled softly. "I hope I can do both, but I also hope to learn. From you, from your people, and from this world." The day ended with the two walking along the cliffside, discussing Zitharian customs, warrior codes, and philosophy. Ethan asked questions, listened carefully, and spoke with humility. Lyra, in turn, began to see him not as a weak human, but as a partner in understanding, someone who could bridge the gap between their two species. As night fell, Crithar Prime's twin moons rose, casting a silver light across the valley. The warriors returned to their quarters, and Ethan to his guest room. Yet he could not sleep immediately. The images of the day, the precision of Zitharian combat, Lyra's sharp eyes, Kale's frustration, and the respect forming between them kept him awake. He realized something important. Surviving was not enough. To truly earn trust, he would have to continue demonstrating patience, courage, and wisdom. He would have to show that humanity's strength lay not only in technology or numbers, but in compassion, intelligence, and resilience. Lyra, meanwhile, sat outside in the moonlight, thinking about the human who had faced two of her greatest warriors without fear or aggression. Something inside her shifted. Humans were unpredictable, fragile, and often weak. But this one, he was different. His strength was subtle, quiet, and powerful in ways she had never considered. She felt a spark of curiosity and perhaps the first hint of admiration. The first day of their real challenge had passed. Both human and Xtherian had learned something important. Strength could take many forms, and sometimes the gentlest approach could surprise even the fiercest warrior. And as the night deepened, Ethan and Lyra both wondered what the next day would bring. Because on Krythar Prime, the greatest lessons were often learned not in battle, but in understanding, and the true challenge was only beginning. The morning on Krythar Prime was quiet, almost serene, but Ethan knew better than to trust appearances. This planet, with its jagged cliffs and strange flora, had surprises in every valley and canyon. Yet as he stepped outside the council complex, Lyra was already waiting, her silhouette framed by the twin suns rising over the horizon. "Ready for today?" she asked, her voice calm but carrying that unmistakable edge of authority. "I am," Ethan replied, adjusting the strap of his bag where he kept his notes and communication devices. "Where are we going?" Lyra did not answer immediately. Instead, she gestured toward a winding path that led down the cliffs, twisting through a forest of crystalline plants whose leaves shimmered with violet light. "I will show you our lands, our culture, and how we survive. Observation is part of learning. You must see our strengths firsthand if you are to understand them." Ethan nodded, careful not to step on the brittle crystal plants. His curiosity grew with each step. The Xtherians had survived centuries in a harsh, dangerous world, and their cities reflected that balance of beauty and resilience. As they walked, Ethan asked questions about the Xtherian hierarchy, their warrior traditions, and the significance of the markings on Lyra's arms. She answered with precision, not oversharing, but enough to convey respect for him. "Why do you ask so many questions?" she finally asked, her golden eyes curious. "Because understanding is the first step toward respect," Ethan replied. "I cannot respect what I do not understand." Lyra paused and looked at him carefully. Few humans speak like that. Most are loud, impatient, or fearful. You are different. They reached a small valley where a group of Xtherians practiced hunting techniques. The prey was not real. It was a simulation. Holographic creatures that required speed, focus, and accuracy to strike. "You will try," Lyra said, handing Ethan a lightweight spear. Ethan hesitated. His experience with weapons was limited, and he did not want to appear weak. But he remembered the lesson from yesterday. Strength was not only in the body. He stepped forward, observing the simulated prey carefully. The first throw missed, bouncing harmlessly off the holographic creature. Lyra raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Ethan adjusted, focusing on the movement of the target, the wind, and his own stance. The second throw hit its mark. The third followed. By the fourth, he struck with consistency. Not perfect, but enough to show effort, observation, and adaptability. Lyra studied him silently. She was impressed, but more than that, she was intrigued. He was not a warrior in her sense, yet he could learn quickly, adapt, and remain calm. Before they could continue, the ground trembled beneath them. Ethan stumbled slightly, and Lyra's ears twitched, an instinctive warning. "An energy storm!" Lyra said immediately, her voice tense. "They are sudden, dangerous, and can destroy settlements in hours. We must reach the city quickly." Ethan followed as Lyra led the way, running with a speed that belied her lean frame. The crystalline plants cracked and splintered under the storm's gusts, and the air was filled with electrical discharges that lit the valley like lightning. They reached the edge of the city, where alarms were already sounding. Zetharians rushed to protect the buildings and citizens, their movements precise and controlled. Ethan instinctively moved to help, guiding some humans who had been sent along as observers to safety. Lyra glanced at him. "You remain calm," she said, almost as a statement rather than a question. "Few would think clearly under this pressure." Ethan nodded. "Panic helps no one. Every action counts, and we must focus." Together, they coordinated rescue efforts. Ethan directed humans to safe zones, while Lyra led Zetharian squads to secure vulnerable areas. Their teamwork was seamless, though unplanned. During the storm, Ethan noticed a small group of Zetharian children trapped in a partially collapsed structure. Without hesitation, he moved toward them, carefully lifting debris and guiding them to safety. Lyra followed, moving swiftly to ensure no one was left behind. Once the children were safe, she turned to him, her expression unreadable. "You acted without hesitation. Humans rarely do this in our lands. You surprise me." Ethan smiled faintly. "I cannot watch others suffer if I can help. That is strength, too." For the first time, Lyra felt something she could not name. Humans were fragile, yes, but this human, Ethan, carried a resilience and courage that rivaled her own people's. He was not strong in the traditional sense, but he was unwavering, calm, and compassionate. The storm passed after several hours, leaving a trail of damage but no loss of life. Zetharian engineers and humans worked together to repair what they could. Lyra and Ethan stood on a high balcony overlooking the city. "You handled yourself well today," Lyra said, finally allowing herself a faint smile. "Not many could coordinate humans and Zetharians under pressure and still remain calm." Ethan shrugged modestly. "I only did what seemed right. Strength is not about proving dominance. It is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Lyra studied him in silence, her mind racing. She had been trained to value physical strength, speed, and combat skill above all else, yet this human had proven another kind of strength, one of intellect, patience, and compassion. "You may stay longer than I thought," she admitted finally. "You are learning fast. Perhaps you will survive the Council's judgment and teach them something they have not yet considered about humans." Ethan felt a surge of hope. He had survived not by brute force, but by understanding and calm reasoning. And now, he had taken the first real step toward earning trust, not only from Lyra, but from her people. Over the next few days, Ethan and Lyra continued their exploration of Crithar Prime. She showed him the training grounds, the markets, and the sacred temples of her people. He asked questions, listened, and sometimes offered suggestions based on human experience. She began to trust him, not blindly but cautiously, observing how he applied knowledge and compassion in ways Zetharians rarely considered. One evening, they sat together atop a cliff, watching the twin suns set. Lyra broke the silence. "You are not like the others. Most humans would have run or tried to fight. You observe, you listen, you act with care. It is remarkable." Ethan looked at her, the fading light reflecting in her golden eyes. "I have much to learn. From you, your people, and this world. But I also hope that what I do may help bridge the gap between humans and Zetharians. We can learn from each other." Lyra remained silent for a moment, contemplating his words. Then she said softly, almost to herself, "Perhaps humans are not as weak as we believed." The bond between them grew, not fast, but steadily. Mutual respect had replaced suspicion, curiosity had replaced hostility, and a shared goal of understanding had begun to form a partnership neither had expected. As night fell, Ethan realized that surviving tests and storms was only part of his journey. To truly earn the Zetherians' trust, he would have to continue demonstrating courage, patience, and wisdom in every challenge to come. Lyra, gazing at the stars, felt a similar realization. This human, so different from her own kind, had the potential to teach her a truth she had never considered, that gentleness could be a kind of strength equal to the sword. And somewhere in the valley below, life on Crithar Prime continued. Warriors trained, children played, and the city rebuilt itself from the storm. But higher up, on the cliff where human and warrior stood side by side, a bond was forming, a bond that would surprise both their worlds and challenge everything they thought they knew about strength. The first real test of courage, understanding, and cooperation had passed, but the journey was far from over. Crithar Prime still held challenges, mysteries, and dangers, and Ethan and Lyra would face them together, each learning from the other, each surprising the other in ways neither expected. Because on this alien world, strength was not only measured in combat, but in trust, respect, and the courage to be gentle in a universe that often demanded force. And for Ethan and Lyra, the greatest surprises were still to come. The days following the energy storm passed quickly on Crithar Prime. The city had recovered, but the political tension beneath the surface was growing. Some Zetherian clans did not trust humans. They saw Ethan as weak, a fragile creature not worthy of their attention, and they were preparing to challenge him and Lyra. Lyra was aware of the murmurs. As a leader among her people, she had to choose carefully. Most warriors expected her to act with aggression or dismiss the human as irrelevant. But Lyra had begun to see something in Ethan, something that few Zetherians had ever seen in a human: calm strength, wisdom, and courage. One morning, as Ethan trained alongside a small group of Zetherian recruits, a messenger arrived, breathing heavily. "Lyra," he said urgently, "the council calls you. A faction plans to challenge the presence of humans. They demand action. They believe you are compromising Zetherian honor by associating with him." Lyra's golden eyes narrowed. She looked at Ethan, who had paused mid-practice, observing her. "It seems the real test begins," she said quietly. Ethan nodded. "Then we face it with truth, patience, and courage." Lyra moved swiftly, gathering a small group of loyal warriors and heading to the council chamber. The chamber itself was a massive hall carved into the cliffside, its walls decorated with symbols of strength, courage, and conquest. The council members sat in elevated positions, watching as Lyra entered with Ethan beside her. "Warrior Lyra," one council elder began, his voice stern. "You bring a human into our lands. He is weak. He is fragile. He cannot understand Zetherian ways. Why do you risk our honor?" Lyra did not respond immediately. She walked to the center of the chamber, her presence commanding attention. "This human," she said slowly, "has survived our tests without fear, without anger, and without harming those who did not threaten him. He is not weak. He is different. And his difference teaches us something we have long forgotten. Strength can exist in gentleness, wisdom, and patience." The council murmured, some scoffing, others whispering in disbelief. An elder stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Words mean little. Show us proof. Demonstrate that he is more than a human curiosity, or you will prove that your loyalty is to a fragile creature, not to Zetheria." Lyra's eyes flashed with determination. "Then I will show you proof." She turned to Ethan. "Are you ready?" Ethan gave a calm nod. "I am, and I trust you." Lyra led him out of the chamber. Outside, the radical faction had staged a demonstration. They had set a controlled test. A small human settlement on the outskirts of the city was under attack from rogue Xitharians, warriors who would pretend to cause chaos. The council demanded that Ethan and Lyra respond. Most humans would have panicked, and most Xitharians would have attacked with brute force. But Lyra had a different plan. She had observed Ethan closely, and she knew he would act with calm reasoning, intelligence, and compassion. The attack began. Rogue Xitharians charged toward the settlement, weapons ready. Lyra led the loyal Xitharians, moving with swift precision, but Ethan did not charge blindly. Instead, he directed the human civilians to safe zones, communicated with both sides, and organized protective measures. His calm voice carried authority even over the chaos. The rogue Xitharians, expecting fear or resistance, were confused. This human, instead of panicking, moved strategically, helping both humans and Xitharians avoid harm. Lyra saw an opportunity. Instead of leading a full attack, she split her forces and acted with precision, defending the settlement while minimizing conflict. Her movements were coordinated, smart, and surprisingly restrained for a warrior of her reputation. The council watched in silence as the demonstration unfolded. What they saw was not a battle, but a lesson in strategy, cooperation, and leadership. Humans and Xitharians worked side by side under Ethan's calm guidance, while Lyra's actions protected her people without unnecessary violence. By the end, the settlement was secure, the rogue Xitharians neutralized, and no lives were lost. The radical faction looked stunned. For the first time, they realized that strength was not always measured by aggression or fear. It could be shown through careful thought, protection of the weak, and decisive action guided by respect. Lyra turned to Ethan, her golden eyes reflecting approval. You see, humans can teach us, even in ways we do not expect, and sometimes patience and strategy are stronger than brute force. Ethan smiled faintly. And sometimes, observing and understanding a warrior's strengths allows even humans to survive, and perhaps even thrive, in ways they could not alone. The council erupted in discussion. Some elders grumbled, unwilling to accept a human's role, but others, especially those who had observed Ethan's calm leadership, began to see the value. The radical faction had been silenced, not by force, but by evidence of competence and wisdom. Lyra stepped forward, her voice rising above the murmurs. Let this be a lesson. Strength takes many forms. Courage is not only in the blade, wisdom is not only in strategy, and leadership is not only in dominance. This human has shown us all that there is more to strength than we imagined. The council was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the head elder nodded. Perhaps. We have judged too quickly. Perhaps there is merit in what you have shown us, Lyra, and perhaps humans are capable of more than we believed. Lyra allowed herself a small smile. She had defended Ethan, surprised her fellow warriors, and taught the council a lesson they would not soon forget. For her, the satisfaction was not in defeating opposition, but in seeing her people learn something new, something valuable, about courage, strength, and understanding. Ethan, standing beside her, felt a mix of relief and pride. He had not fought with weapons, yet he had proven the human ability to lead, protect, and act wisely. The bond between him and Lyra had deepened. She now trusted him in ways that few Xitharians could understand, and she had shown her people that humans could be allies rather than threats. After the council meeting, Lyra led Ethan to a quiet overlook. The city stretched below them, recovering from the storm and the test, its lights flickering as evening approached. You surprised them, Ethan said quietly, looking at her. And you surprised me too. Lyra's expression softened slightly. Perhaps you are teaching me something as well, human. That courage is not always loud, that leadership is not always forceful, that trust can be given carefully and earned in ways few expect. Ethan smiled. And you have shown me that even the fiercest warriors can value gentleness and patience. We both have learned from each other today. Lyra nodded. For the first time, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. Humans were fragile, yes, but this one, Ethan, had shown her that fragility did not mean weakness. Strength could take many forms, and sometimes the most surprising strength was quiet, calm, and patient. The evening passed in conversation rather than combat. They shared stories of their worlds, of battles and victories, of lessons learned through courage and care. For Ethan, the trust he felt from Lyra was unlike anything he had experienced with any other species. And for Lyra, the calm wisdom of a human had opened a door she did not know existed, a door to new ways of thinking, new ways of leading, and new ways of seeing strength. As night fell, the twin moons of Crithar Prime rose once more, casting silver light over the city. Lyra stood silently, her mind alive with thoughts of the day. Humans were fragile, but some could surprise even the fiercest Xtherians. And Ethan had done more than survive. He had changed the way she thought about strength, courage, and leadership. For Ethan, the day had reinforced his belief. True power did not always come from weapons or dominance, but from patience, understanding, and the courage to act wisely under pressure. And with Lyra by his side, he knew that together they could face any challenge, political tension, storms, or even rogue warriors. The council had been impressed, the radical factions silenced, and the bond between human and Xtherian stronger than ever. But the universe still held many challenges, and as Ethan and Lyra looked out over the city, they knew the greatest surprises and the greatest tests were still to come. For on Crithar Prime, strength could take many forms, and the courage to act gently, wisely, and with respect could change the fate of two worlds. And sometimes, the gentlest actions surprised the fiercest warriors the most. The morning air on Crithar Prime was cool and crisp, carrying a faint metallic scent from the crystalline plants nearby. Captain Ethan Voss stood at the edge of the cliff, looking out over the city below. The city had recovered well from the storms and tests, buzzing with activity as Xtherians and humans moved together in cautious but growing cooperation. Lyra approached silently, her golden eyes reflecting the rising sun. She had been quiet for a long time, contemplating the events of the past weeks, the storms, the duels, the council's reactions, and most of all the quiet strength of the human who had walked beside her. "You are early," Ethan said, turning to greet her. Lyra gave a small nod. "I prefer to observe before speaking. Today is important. The Council has asked for a final demonstration, proof that humans and Xtherians can cooperate without unnecessary conflict. They are watching closely." Ethan followed her down the winding path toward the training grounds, noting how much the Xtherians had grown accustomed to his presence. Children waved at him from balconies, and citizens moved with curiosity rather than suspicion. For the first time, he felt the possibility of a true alliance forming between humans and Xtherians. At the training grounds, the council awaited. The radical faction, though still present, had been silenced by Lyra's actions in the previous demonstration. Now, the test was not just about survival, it was about trust, cooperation, and leadership. Lyra turned to Ethan. "This will be your greatest challenge yet. We must act together, not just as warriors and humans, but as partners." Ethan nodded. "I trust you, Lyra. I will follow your lead, and I hope my actions prove that trust is well placed." The demonstration began. A simulated natural disaster had been set up. A canyon collapse in one section of the city, threatening both human and Xtherian areas. The council wanted to see how effectively the two species could work together under pressure. Lyra immediately took command of the Xitherian teams, issuing precise orders to secure the city and protect the citizens. Her movements were swift and exact, but unlike past demonstrations, she paused to allow Ethan to coordinate the humans. Ethan worked efficiently, directing human teams to transport supplies, guide citizens to safety, and support the Xitherian squads where necessary. He maintained calm even when unexpected obstacles arose: fallen debris, unstable structures, and the panic of some citizens. Together, they formed a seamless unit. Where Lyra provided strength, strategy, and precision, Ethan provided patience, foresight, and problem-solving. It was a partnership that neither species had seen before. Humans and Xitherians moved as one, following both Ethan's reasoning and Lyra's direction. Midway through the demonstration, a group of young Xitherian recruits became trapped by a falling rock formation. Lyra moved to protect them, but she realized that reaching them directly would take time. Ethan saw an opportunity to act. Using a combination of ropes, pulleys, and human engineering techniques, he created a safe path for the recruits to escape. Lyra watched silently, her respect growing with every careful decision he made. When the young warriors were safely out of harm's way, she finally spoke. "You think differently than us, human. Your strength is not in combat but in foresight and care. That is surprising." Ethan smiled, brushing dirt from his hands. "And your strength is not just in force. It is in leadership, courage, and the willingness to protect your people. Together, we can do more than either of us alone." The council observed everything, their expressions shifting from skepticism to cautious approval. The radical faction could no longer deny what they saw: humans, led by Ethan, and Xitherians, led by Lyra, working in perfect cooperation. After several hours, the disaster simulation concluded successfully. No lives were lost, all citizens were safe, and the council had witnessed a new form of leadership, one that combined human wisdom and Xitherian strength. Lyra stepped forward, addressing the council. "This is proof that trust and cooperation can overcome fear and suspicion. Humans and Xitherians may be different, but together we are stronger. We have learned from each other, and we have shown that strength comes in many forms." The council remained silent for a moment. Then slowly, the head elder nodded. "It is clear. You have proven that humans are capable of understanding, courage, and leadership. Perhaps we have judged them too quickly. Perhaps there is value in this alliance." Ethan bowed respectfully. "I am honored by your judgment. I only hope this is the beginning of understanding between our peoples." The radical faction, though reluctant, could not dispute the evidence. Lyra's careful guidance and Ethan's calm intelligence had silenced doubt with action, not argument. Even the most skeptical council members had to acknowledge that humans could contribute more than anyone had expected. As the council adjourned, Lyra led Ethan to the cliff overlooking the city once more. The twin moons were rising, casting silver light across the valleys and towers. "You have surprised many people," Lyra said softly, almost to herself. "But you have also surprised me. I expected fear or weakness, but you have shown strength, patience, and wisdom. That is unusual." Ethan looked at her, a quiet smile on his face. "And you have shown me that courage is not only in fighting, but in leading, protecting, and trusting. You have taught me more than I could have imagined about your people and your world." For a long moment they stood together in silence, the bond between human and warrior stronger than any blade or weapon. Lyra finally spoke again, her voice calm, but with a hint of warmth. "Perhaps humans are not as fragile as we believed, and perhaps strength is more than physical power. You have proven that gentleness, patience, and understanding are also forms of strength, Sometimes even greater than brute force? Ethan nodded. And perhaps warriors like you can learn that even the fiercest strength can be complemented by care and wisdom. We are not enemies. We can be partners. Lyra's golden eyes reflected the moon's as she considered this. Then, in a gesture that surprised even Ethan, she extended her hand, a traditional Xtharian gesture of deep trust and honor. Ethan took it carefully. In that moment, no words were needed. The gesture symbolized mutual respect, trust, and the understanding that two very different species could learn from each other and work together. As they released their hands, Lyra finally smiled, a genuine smile free of judgment or suspicion. You have changed my view of humans, and perhaps in time you will change the view of all Xtharians. Ethan returned the smile. I hope so, but more importantly, I hope we continue to learn from each other. That is how understanding grows, one step at a time. The days that followed were filled with cooperation, learning, and small victories. Humans and Xtharians worked side by side, building stronger cities, sharing knowledge, and training together. Ethan continued to observe and guide, using calm reasoning and patience to resolve conflicts. Lyra continued to lead, protecting her people while embracing the new ideas he offered. Over time, trust solidified. Children learned from both human and Xtharian teachers, sharing lessons about courage, intelligence, and respect. Traders, engineers, and scholars began collaborations that would have been impossible before. Krythar Prime had changed. Not because of conquest, but because two individuals, one human, one Xtharian, had chosen to lead with wisdom and compassion. One evening, Ethan and Lyra stood together once more atop the cliff. The city below glimmered with life, and the stars above seemed brighter than ever. You have surprised me again, Lyra said quietly, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Not with battle, but with patience, understanding, and courage. That is something few warriors ever experience. Ethan smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. And you have surprised me. Not with a fight, but with trust, leadership, and openness. Together, we have shown our peoples a new path, one that values cooperation over conflict. Lyra looked at him, her golden eyes warm. Perhaps this is only the beginning. A human and a warrior, working together, learning from each other. Who knows what we can achieve? Ethan nodded. Whatever comes next, we face it together. And perhaps one day, humans and Xtharians will see that true strength comes not only from power but from trust, understanding, and the courage to be gentle in a universe that often demands force. They stood together in silence, the moons rising, the city thriving, and the bond between human and warrior unbreakable. For Krythar Prime, for humans, and for Xtharians, the future looked brighter than ever. A future built on respect, trust, and the surprising strength of gentleness. And as the stars shone overhead, both Ethan and Lyra understood a simple truth. Sometimes, the greatest victories are not won by the sword, but by the courage to act with wisdom, patience, and care. In that quiet moment, the warrior and the human shared a glance that said more than words ever could. They had changed each other, and in doing so had changed the future of two worlds. The story of their bond, their courage, and their gentle strength would be remembered for generations. A tale of how understanding, patience, and respect could overcome fear, suspicion, and even the fiercest challenges. For Ethan and Lyra, it was not the end of their journey, but the beginning of a new chapter. One where humans and Xtharians could walk side by side, stronger together than apart, and where true strength was measured not only by the might of arms, but by the courage of the heart.